Welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. I'm Danielle Van, a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach, meditation teacher, and author, and this is your go-to show for a powerful blueprint of personal growth and empowerment, where we dig into the 5 master areas of your life: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health and well-being. So if you're tired of feeling stuck and ready to break through the barriers holding you back, whether it's trauma or you simply don't have the tools, you've found the right place. We're combining Eastern and Western medicine with real, raw, unapologetic conversations to shake up your mindset, elevate your life with new ideas, while helping you release the old, all while helping you take action towards the very best version of yourself. This one is really for the ladies. Gentlemen, you may learn something, but we've probably all experienced it, that overwhelming, invisible weight that doesn't just drain your physical energy, but takes you down mentally and emotionally too. It's the mental load, often described as the invisible work for our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our partners. It's the planning, the organizing, the constant living and thinking to the next thing ahead, and really never stopping, no matter whether it's a day or a night, weekends, holidays. It's relentless. It's the jobs that are so thankless that you really feel disconnected to your life. You're not crazy if you're someone who has had that feeling. So today we're taking a one-on-one deep dive into the mental load of caregiving. We're breaking it all down and even giving you some tools to help you really be able to focus on the self. So let's not waste another second. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. Oh, man. I don't know about you, but there's not much time for downtime in my life. It just doesn't seem to matter what I prioritize. There just isn't much downtime. I started thinking about some of our more thankless jobs as mothers, as partners, as just human beings, right? Human doings. And it seems to be relentless when I go through what I do and what you do as you human, right? So if you've ever felt like your mind is racing, you're always on to the next things, whether you're taking care of kids or maybe your parents or anything else in your life, I just want you to know you're not alone, right? You're not crazy. When I talk to people about caregiving, I'm not talking about just feeding someone or helping to bathe them or doing the laundry. I'm talking about the mental load of keeping everything together, having all the balls up in the air and, being willing to put on the catching gear and take care of everything, right? It's this mental load of planning the meals and figuring out what medications need to be picked up, and every appointment needs to be arranged, making sure that there's food in the refrigerator. If you're a mom, making sure that your kids feel emotionally fed, right? Feeling loved and heard and supported in every way, making sure that you are staying up late and calculating how much energy you have to get through the rest of the day and wondering, is there any time left for me? It's this emotional labor that gets so overlooked. And it's very difficult when we feel alone on our island because there is an invisible weight of caretaking. 1, we have to identify it, and 2, we have to do something different with it, right? And so I want to talk about that today. I want to break that down and give some tips. 1, why does this matter? 2, allow yourself to be seen and heard in it, knowing that this isn't just you. You don't have a rotten husband necessarily. You might, right? You may have a really bad partner. You may have a spouse that doesn't see you. But mostly we get into these ruts in our lives, these sort of assigned positions, and we don't ask for help. We just carry it all. My mind started thinking about this the other day because I saw maybe it was on Instagram, I don't remember, but I saw this post where this woman was talking about the emotional load of being the caregiver to her husband. And she was saying they went to a doctor's appointment and the husband was trying to answer his medical history and he just couldn't do it. He just didn't have all the details. And so she began filling in the information, and she kind of got her hands scolded, slapped, right, by the doctor. And it was like, your husband needs to know this information about himself. And she's like, you're 100% right. He does. However, he doesn't remember when his ankle was hurting. He doesn't remember when he got that flu vaccination. He doesn't remember when that heart attack happened. It's my job. And so there was sort of this back and forth in this post. And I just sat there because I felt it. I felt it all. If my husband's listening, sorry, right? He does the same thing, right? I am expected to hold all of his information in my brain, and that does carry a mental load. And I think there's so many spouses, no matter what your relationship looks like, that has that same fluidity to it, right? That you're in charge of everything, and that is so tiring. That mental load is exhausting, but it's the emotional labor that gets so overlooked, like I just said. If you're always listening to someone else's needs and worries and validating their feelings and holding space for them, all while you are running dry, you become very resentful sometimes. You become very scarred by the experience. You feel like there's nothing else left for you. And when you try to prioritize yourself, it's sort of like, wait, why are you taking time away from me? I'm used to you carrying everything for me. And we have to become very clear about, one, the awareness that this is happening, and two, what we want to do with it. And then three, handing back things that don't really belong to us. Right? You can't carry everyone's emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial weight while they feel good about their lives and you feel like trash, right? Society tells us we have to be good at this as the mothers, as the caretakers. In fact, so many women are expected to be good at this. We're supposed to nurture. We're supposed to be patient. We're supposed to self-sacrifice to the point of nothing. We're told that caring for others means that you're giving them the greatest act of love. And that is true. However, at what cost? At what cost? Caregiving, when it's done to your detriment, the detriment of your own well-being, is unsustainable. It's unsustainable. You will burn out. You'll feel disconnected, drained, and eventually resentful. When I talk to couples and they come into therapy, a lot of times they'll talk about their disconnection. And I'll say, well, where does it start? Well, mostly the men say, she doesn't have time for me. And I'll often say, okay, that's fair. What are you doing to help ease the situation so that there is time? And I tell you what, it's sort of like that Instagram post where the doctor is slapping the woman's hand, because that's my way of saying, what's your role in the situation? If you're complaining that your spouse doesn't have time, what are you doing to be the partner, right? Not just the backup, not the secondary person, the partner, the person that's standing side by side by your spouse saying, you know what? I see that you're drowning this week. Let me do the laundry. I see that you're exhausted this week. Let me call and make that appointment. I see that I need to go to the doctor's appointment by myself. You know, are there some things that you want me to ask? Because I'm going to write them down. Can you remind me of when this occurred? And maybe what was I, complaining about? But from there on, I'm going to lock this in and I've got this. We cannot be in helper mode 24/7, right? There has to be a real break somewhere. And that starts with us, right? If you burn out, you have nothing left to give. You can't help in the manner that you want to help. So let's talk about the emotional toll and why it matters. The emotional toll of caregiving is real. It's real. It doesn't matter if it's with your kids or your spouse or your parent or the organization that you volunteer for or the next door neighbor or whatever it is. It's real. It's not just that you're physically tired from your constant demands, it's that you're mentally exhausted. You're constantly thinking about the next thing that needs to be done. You're always on. There is no off switch. And the hardest part is you don't feel like you can say anything when the duty becomes so much, when it becomes too much. It's been a while. I don't know if you've seen it, but I don't know, maybe 10 years ago? Maybe? I don't know, maybe less than that. There was a post that was going around about how much moms would earn if they were stay-at-home moms and they were given a salary per task that they complete. And often what was really kind of identified is that they would actually be paid more on their yearly salary than perhaps what their husbands were making or their significant others. And it's really true. It's like if I have to constantly be on duty, I'm being burdened to a level that is unsustainable and there's nothing really to show for it, right? You might feel guilty whenever we want to step back or you want to feel a little less overwhelmed. You'll feel like you're failing because the world depends on you. You've got everything on your shoulder and asking for help feels like a betrayal of the expectation that is on you. And so you power through, you put on the brave face, you keep giving, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know why I'm so sick. Why am I so drained? There's this psychological toll, right? So many of us are running on autopilot and we're exhausted. We're worrying. It's this endless calculation. And so we have to begin to pull back. We have to be able to understand this process. It leaves you with no room to simply exist for yourself. It is obviously not just tiring, it can be paralyzing. You feel stuck. And it really is a space where I ask a lot of times, did you choose this? Did you choose this or did it just come to be? And if it did just come to be, can we change the way that we're showing up? There's another piece to all of this, right? Because there's a sense of duty that warps our self-worth. We don't feel justified in taking breaks. Now, if you're somebody who's had a lot of trauma in your background, sitting down is going to be difficult for you, right? Because we're always on the defensive. But it's even in just saying no or asking for help. The act of caregiving becomes an expectation, not a choice, like I just said, and it makes it harder and harder to address the overwhelming toll that it's taking. So why is this a mental health crisis for women, right? Because at the core, it's not just a caregiving issue. It is a mental health crisis for many people. It sounds like everything that I do is not enough. It sounds like no matter what I do, I'm not seen. I'm not heard. It feels like never having any support, never having any acknowledgement. It leads to burnout. It's that slow, insidious kind of depletion a lot of times. You're constantly giving, whether physically, emotionally, and mentally, and there's no time and space or permission, right, to recharge. And it's not just that physical tired, it's anxiety, it's depression. What happens when you're always thinking about other people and never about yourself? You will lose your sense of self. 100%, right? You will lose it. You'll become disconnected from your own needs, your own identity, your own desires. You're going to feel like a vessel for others, and it is an empty vessel. And the worst part, no one is going to step up to help you carry that load until you start talking. And so that's the part that feels so damn isolating. When society demands women to juggle all the responsibilities, the infrastructure around you, whether that's the relationship, the workplaces, or the communities, you don't often get support. That's why it becomes invisible. It means the emotional toll goes unnoticed. It's sort of that, oh, she'll just handle it. It'll be fine. It's not sustainable because you're not a machine. You can't run endlessly without a break, without this replenishing that is necessary. So how do we address this? And you do need to address it. If everything that I have just said in this last, say, 12 minutes has you nodding your head, clapping your hands, or even in tears, it is time for a radical shift, both within yourself and the environment around you. Because addressing the mental load means creating a culture where caregiving is seen and it's a shared responsibility. It's where your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health is also prioritized, not ignored. It is that same thing of me saying, oh, really? You're coming in here, you're complaining about not being connected with your spouse, and you can't answer how you are helping? That's on you too. And so this is a shared responsibility. So if you're standing there and you do have a partner, it's time to have hard conversations. If you're flying solo in life, it's time to ask for help outside. Okay, whether that is a parent, a sibling, somebody that you pay, a babysitter if it's possible, but giving yourself the ability to prioritize yourself. Now that we're clear that this is obviously a problem, let's address it fully. Addressing the mental load means creating a culture where caregiving is seen as a shared responsibility, where your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health are prioritized and not ignored. So the very first thing that I want you to do when you are addressing this perspective is to change the narrative, right? To redefine caregiving as that shared responsibility. You have to challenge the narrative for it to change. Caregiving is not solely a woman's job. Now, if you're a single parent, it feels like it's solely your job, especially if you have a dismissive ex-partner. But the truth is, it is always more than just one. And we can start handing over responsibility to different people, right? It doesn't have to just be your ex-partner. It can be family, community, workspaces, whatever it is, right? So if you're wanting to make real progress in easing the mental load, you have to challenge the way you think about care. Caregiving must be a shared responsibility. That means having honest conversations with your partner, with your ex-partner, with your children, your family members, your friends about what caregiving looks like. It means expecting equal participation from the people that are actively a part of your life. Not just the physical task, but the emotional task too. Now, I'm not saying hand over the responsibility to someone who isn't an active part of your life. I just mean, where is your support system and can you gain more support? This looks like asking your partner to take over some of the mental planning, like organizing appointments or checking in on the parents. It can mean teaching children to take responsibility for their own things. You don't have to go look for the shoes every single time that they're lost. Where did you put them? Retrace your steps. Problem solve. You have to give your children the ability to problem solve because at some point you won't be able to do it for them. Same with your spouse if you're constantly doing that for them. It means teaching that you cannot orchestrate every little detail of every single day. It means asking for the other person to acknowledge the mental load that's on you. It is not enough to simply say, help out, or will you help me? It is, will you carry part of this with me? That's so important. It's a conversation I recently had with my older daughters. Like, hey, I'm feeling very undervalued and I need you to help me with this and this. Because if I'm constantly doing for you, it means that I'm going to be exhausted. And an exhausted me is not a fun me, right? And so they know that that's me saying I'm carrying too much. These are the conversations that you need to be having. The second is you must put yourself up top. You must prioritize your mental health, not just your task. Do you feel that? This is just as important as the to-do list. Actually, it's more important. You can't continue to run on empty. That means that your to-do list has to take a step back. right? It's got to come down just a little bit so that your mental health has the number one slot, or even your emotional health, maybe even just your physical health, whatever it might be. But in a world that constantly demands more from you, how do you make that happen, right? That's a very big question. The first is to acknowledge that you're allowed to have needs. Hello, right? You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to say, I can't do all of this on my own, or I can't do that right now. The hardest part of all of this is to give yourself permission to take a step back. You have to begin by identifying the areas where this mental load is so overwhelming. Is it emotional labor of checking in on everyone and managing feelings? Is it the mental task of organizing everyone's schedule? Is it the constant worry about the people that you care for, or the people that you're trying to keep yourself safe from? That's a big one, right? But once you pinpoint these areas, you have to break them down. What can you hand back? What's not yours? What can you delegate? What can you automate? That's a big one, right? Where, this is the big key, can you stop doing everything altogether? Where can you put a pause? Where can you say, you know what, that's not even mine, so I'm laying it down? I mentioned a few weeks ago, so I'll bring it back up again. When I'm doing my to-do list, I have it divided into two different sections. Me, so these are self-assignments, and them. These are the things that other people are handing over to me, want something from me, and I do those things, but only when I have time, right? Because somebody else's emergency cannot always be my priority. It's there that real change happens when you start to put yourself above the doing. And then I want you to look at the boundaries. We talk about boundaries so much here. Setting those radical boundaries is so necessary. You have to be clear. Now, this goes beyond the basic of just saying no. It's setting boundaries in a way that says no to extra commitments. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. To truly set radical boundaries, you have to be clear about what's a non-negotiable for you. And it's not just about your physical well-being, but it's about your emotional and mental well-being too. Let me give you an example. When you're overwhelmed by emotional weight, by everyone else's feelings, you can say no to taking on another person's emotions or to emotionally caretake. It's okay to tell people, I really don't have the emotional capacity to hold space for that right now. Not saying that I can't do that for you or that I won't do it for you at another time. It's just right now, I can't. Trust me, you aren't being abandoned and you are not abandoning, right? It's just a matter of I have to allow myself to be imperfect. It means that I have to resist the urge to people please, and I have to let go of the idea that I have to fix everything. I have to reclaim my time and my energy and my peace of mind. There was a joke. So in my day-to-day life, I love to help organize things, okay? It's just one of those things for me. I find pleasure when I volunteer my time and I give to other people. However, I have to be careful because I can get into caretaker mode really, really easy. It comes by the nature of who I am, right? Even by the nature of what I do for a living. And so understand that I can do that. And there was a big joke that between my husband and a very close friend of ours that I wasn't going to take on this one task for this organization that we're a part of. And I was like, okay, sure. Internally, I was like, just let me do it, please. Just let me do it because it's going to be better and I'll be happier, right? We all have that. And the joke was, you don't have time, so don't do it. You're going to make yourself burnt out. Last time that I did it was with a different group and it didn't go so well, not because of what I was doing, just because of the personalities. And so it was just one of those places like, hey, we're going to set a radical boundary for you. Although I'm not the one who assigned it, so I wasn't subscribing to it. Well, guess who ended up doing it anyway? It was me. But I have to put boundaries around how much I give and how much I fix, because I can find myself in this space too, this disorganization, this space that doesn't help me put me first. Right? And again, this is not about selfishness. This is about making sure that you take care of you and then pour from the overflow, right? The next thing is to reclaim your own identity, right? Which means connecting with the things that make you, you. How many of us don't do that because we're so busy? You are a person. I promise that you are, right? And you are more than just a wife and a daughter and a caretaker and a caregiver and whoever else you want to, whatever else label you want to put on yourself. You're a person with your own needs and your own desires and your own dreams. And then the cycle of caregiving, you often forget that. So you have to reclaim your identity, meaning connecting with the things that make you, you. I just said that. I'm going to say it again. Connecting with the things that make you, you. What did you love before caregiving took over? What lights you up? What makes you feel good? Where can you carve out space to nourish your passion and reawaken your sense of self? This doesn't mean to abandon your responsibilities. It means integrating your needs into your life, right? Integrating your needs into your life, to be alongside them, right? To be with them alongside the needs of other people. It means prioritizing the activities that fuel you, whether it's taking up a creative hobby or meditation or spending time in nature or just sitting in silence without guilt. Your identity is worth fighting for. If you're like me, I'm somebody that if I stop in the middle of the day, I have a hard time, right? I feel guilty. A lot of times after a baseball game for my son, it's, late. We've been in the heat all day or we're in the cold all day and we're just exhausted. But yet I know if I come home, I've been at work all week long. And for me, I'm now going to have to do the things like the laundry and clean the kitchen and mop the floors and take care of the dogs and do all of these things. And yet I also have to say, hey, before your nap, can we do these things together so we can both take a nap? Right? Those kind of things. It's reclaiming so that you can put your needs in first position too. Let me say this very clearly. It is something that I'm still working on as well. So understand, this is not me sitting on a high horse preaching. This is me reminding myself as well. You don't have to do it all. You don't. You don't have to be everything to everyone. The mental load that you're carrying, this invisible burden, does not belong to you solely. You can share the weight. You can set boundaries. You can prioritize your own mental health. If you're exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, it's okay, but it also means it's time to change the record. You are allowed to rest. You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to reclaim yourself. The mental load of caregiving is not something that you have to bear in silence or you have to do it alone. And I really want you to shift that thought process. I want you to get into a space that you recognize that caregiving can be and should be a collective effort. It's not an individual burden. You're not alone. You're not broken. You shouldn't not ask for help. And let me say this. If you're used to asking for help and having your hand slapped because of that, you may be asking for help from someone who's not able to provide it for you or to you. And that can destroy us, right? We get so afraid of that we just wall everything up and we have this quiet breakdown that happens in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit. The quiet says, I don't know how much more of this I can take, and it never gets voiced. And the tears that you hold back and that you fight through because there's no time and there's no space and no one will listen, that emotional exhaustion creeps in slowly, and gradually, one day you just stop feeling altogether. And that worry becomes a constant companion. That guilt becomes your shadow. And you have to understand that comes from sacrificing your own emotional well-being. The emotional cost is built into the expectation, that space that you're supposed to be selfless. But my friend, it comes at the cost of your peace. Do you know that? This is a symptom of the system that's not working for you. So if you lose your ability to feel joy, you have to begin to heal it, right? You have to stop seeing yourself as the martyr, if that's something that you're in that space of. It can happen, right? And it's because you're completely depleted by others. We feel like we can't take our own hand and do, and that's fair. But the truth is, you can. You have to radically reframe. You have to give yourself permission to ask for help. That's the hardest part. I don't mean asking for help for the small things, but I mean ask for space to be held. Ask to be seen. Tell the people you love, I need someone to hold me too. I can't be strong all the time. I can't take everybody's emotional weight. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's called being a human. You have to reclaim yourself. You have to know that you are worthy of being able to prioritize yourself. That is what self-care is all about, right? You have to let go of the frustration, the perfectionism. You have to practice mindfulness. And most importantly, you have to talk about it. Talk about your mental load. Acknowledge that it exists. Step head first into it. It's not fun, but you should do it. Have honest conversations with your loved ones about what you need. Share your emotional burden. They may not even know it's there. And you go, well, how could you not? How could you not see me crying? How could you not? And the answer is they may just be so used to you doing it all that anything beyond that feels foreign. It's okay to take care of yourself. You deserve that. It starts by acknowledging that caregiving doesn't have to come at your own cost. You don't have to lose your mind, your mental health, your emotional health in order to help everyone. And bit by bit, it's not going to be easy. It won't happen overnight. You can take a small step towards caring for yourself, and that helps you reclaim your energy and find peace. Remember, do your best. That's it. And that's enough. And when you do that, it is the essential step into getting your life together. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and are looking for daily inspiration, please follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Clapper, Threads, YouTube, and Pinterest, as well as Insight Timer. If you're not already, you can find me under two places, Danielle A. Van or Get Your Life Together Girl. If you haven't gone to my website yet, please do so, www.getyourlifetogethergirl.com. You'll find so much information, and you can find different ways to actually work with me one-on-one. I'm about to go on to a wait list, so now is your time if you're wanting to get into individual coaching or therapy sessions with me from anywhere around the world. I hope you'll check that out. And as always, I want to thank you so much for being such a valuable member of this community. Until next time, please be kind to yourself and others.